Hello and welcome to the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast, where we are encouraging the everyday mom to pursue her dreams and discover her own greatness. Hey, cool mamas, this is Sheilah, and you are listening to episode 29 of the Keep Your Cool Mama podcast. Hey, girl, hey. Hey, girl. It's been a minute. Well, more like almost a year. Last time I recorded a Keep Your Cool Mama podcast was April 12th of 2021. What? April 12th of 2021. Yeah, it's been a minute. I definitely did not mean to take this long. I did purposely take a break, and I want to talk to you guys about why I took that break. And I think it actually fits into today's episode as well. But let me introduce myself. My name is Sheilah. If this is your first time listening, my name is Sheilah, and I am the creator and founder of Keep Your Cool Mama. Keep Your Cool Mama is a platform that I created back in 2017. Podcast started in 2019, but the blog started in 2017. And it's pretty much a platform that I created to help moms balance both motherhood and personal growth. So I'm just all about us loving on ourselves. We love being moms, but we also love ourselves, and they both deserve the same amount of energy, right? So I just wanted to take a minute to reintroduce myself to those who know me and who do not know me, because it has been almost a year. Let's just say it's been 1 year. Okay. I'm taking myself off the hook by saying it's only almost been a year, but it has been about almost 365 days, because March is almost over. Can you believe that? Can you believe that we are almost into the 4th month of 2022? It's crazy. But I'm just happy to be back with you guys. I'm happy to be recording this microphone. I just did not realize how happy it has made me over the years. And I'm excited to talk with all of you today. And today I just wanted to chat with you about the difficulties of taking care of yourself emotionally while being a mom. I'm not sure if everybody can relate, but I know there are a few people out there, at least a few people out there that can relate to the difficulties of just paying attention to your emotions and how it's affecting you and things of that nature when you're a mom. And on the flip side of that, I also want to make sure that I share some tips that have helped me to become more self-aware of my emotional needs, and some things that will help to give some relief during an emotional time. Okay. So first, let's talk about how it can be harder for moms to take care of their emotional needs. Let's talk about the difficulties. Okay. I have 4 points that I want to discuss. So the first is being pulled in many directions, right? Because our children also have their needs that we have to attend to. How many times a day do we hear mommy, mommy, mom all day long being called? How many times in a day? If we could count, it's definitely going to exceed the 10 fingers that we have, right? And when we're being pulled in so many directions, it's hard to focus on yourself. It's hard to think about what you're feeling, because You just feel like there's no time for that. And sometimes we do have to push ourselves to the side in order to be a present help to to our children as their parents. Sometimes we do have to do that. And that can make it more difficult to pay attention to our own emotional needs. Okay. And number two would be taking care of our emotional needs takes time and intentionality. Time that we kind of feel like we don't have, right? It's very time consuming, to say the least, to be a mom, to be a present mom, to be there for your children in a major way. And when that's happening, it could feel like there is no time to be intentional. And most of us just fill up our calendars with what everyone else needs and beyond our children, right? Sometimes it's not just our children. Sometimes it's our spouses. Sometimes it's our friends. Sometimes it's our siblings, our parents, you know, all the people and all the things, all the activities, all the parties, all of the things for work fill up our calendars, and we leave no room for our own well being. And sometimes we just aren't taking time to fit our own needs and wants into our schedules. And that can make it difficult for us to take care of our emotional needs. Um, I know for me, taking care of my emotional needs is definitely something that I need to get better at. Um, it's it's definitely not something that I have mastered, but it is something that I have made a huge attempt to be better at becoming more aware of what I am feeling. And you do have to be intentional about taking the time to pay attention to how you're feeling. And sometimes it's not actually putting the time on your schedule, because things are happening all day long. Stuff is happening all day long. Thoughts are racing all day long, every minute of the day. And sometimes you have to pay attention to what's happening to you in the moment. We may not be able to do something at that time, but we can at least make a note of, ooh, what's that feeling? Why am I thinking that? Why do I feel like that? Or sometimes it's even hard to define what the emotion is. I know for me, I may be feeling a certain way about something and I know it's uncomfortable, and I can kind of pinpoint what it is, but then another thought will come in about something that I have to do later. And the uncomfortableness is still sitting there. But then at the same time, I'm like, okay, what was I thinking? What was that? I can't remember what it was. That I know that I'm feeling uncomfortable about something. I know I have to circle back on what that feeling was, but I can't remember what it was. And generally that happens when I'm not intentional about making a note about that uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes it can be as simple as writing it down, having a notebook next to you and writing down, well, what was that emotion that I need to circle back? Or it could be as simple as opening your phone's notepad and writing that down, and saying, okay, I'm feeling this. Or sometimes, I mean, it may not be realistic to write it down, or it could be talking it out with somebody. And we'll talk about that in a minute too. I know sometimes when an emotion pops up for me, um, lately, instead of just forgetting about it, I will talk to my husband or my sister about it and just get it out instead of just letting it just sit there and fester and not um, pay attention to it. It's important to pay attention to what's happening, what's going on with me. And it's easy It's really easy to not pay attention to it. It's really easy to just push it to the side and say, I don't have time for it. But when it becomes not easy is when it shows up in your life in so many different ways that you weren't expecting it to show up as anger or as being dissatisfied with a lot of things, or you going off on somebody because they just asked you a simple question, but somehow, some way that it triggered you. How they ask you, the words they said, or whatever it may be, triggered you. It just happens like that. If you don't pay attention to what's going on with you, it will show up somehow, some way. That's a fact. Ask me how I know. Okay, so taking care of your emotional needs takes time and intentionality. And because of that, that's what makes it hard for us as moms, because we feel like we just don't have time, but we have to make time. We have to make time somehow, some way. And we can talk about that later, how to make that time. But I do have some helpful tips later on in the episode that we can talk about, helpful things that have guided me along the way to make sure that I'm paying attention to my emotions that may be able to help you. So number 3, the reason why it makes it difficult for us to pay attention to our emotional needs sometimes, is we may feel like if we slow down for even a moment to tend to our emotions, we will unravel and not have energy to function as a mother or just as a person, period. Oh my goodness. This hits me hard. Let's talk about grieving. Let's talk about grieving in so many ways. Grieving the loss. I said lost, y'all. I did not mean to say that. Grieving the loss of loved ones, or grieving when someone is ill, someone is sick, and you're in the dynamic of your relationship is changing, and grieving that. Grieving makes it hard to okay, maybe it doesn't make it hard. What's a better way to say this? Um, okay. So when we slow down, right, and we think about what's going on, it makes you emotional to the point where you just can't help it. So some of us just choose not to feel, because we know that when we do that, it's going to make us feel a certain way to where we can't function. So let's talk about grieving. Let's go back to that. So part of the reason why I have been gone from Keep Your Cool Mama for so long, I talked to you guys about this in a previous episode about my father being sick, and he had been dealing with the same brain tumor off and on for about 10 years. He had 3 brain surgeries. And on top of that, he had 2 heart surgeries. And there is a lot of grief that comes along just simply when they're sick. Not just when people pass away, but also when they're sick. Maybe they're sick and they get well, but maybe when they are sick, it takes a certain amount of emotional energy to process that. And when my father was sick for that many years, I found myself not feeling as much of it as I knew I should be feeling, and almost trying to brace myself in a way that would allow me to function as an adult. As an adult with 3 children, a husband, a full-time job, and just all the things that come along with being an adult. And because of that, that makes you want to just not feel. And sometimes it's not because we just we're sometimes we're not doing it on purpose, but it's like almost like we're um sometimes we just don't know how to feel, right? But in the sense of what we're talking about right now, as far as not wanting to unravel because we know we're not going to have enough energy to do everything that we want to do or that we need to do. That was me for so many years. And my father actually passed away in July, unfortunately, of last year. And that took me down in a way that I wasn't expecting. I stopped podcasting, like I said earlier, in April. And that was around the time when he started to get even more sick. And it had been some time that I decided that I was going to face the reality of what was happening, because sometimes we just choose not to face reality because, like I said, we have a life to attend to. And if we completely give ourselves over to the emotion of what is happening, you feel like it can you just aren't going to be able to function. So he, while he was sick, before he passed away, I decided that I was just going to face the reality of what was going on, brace myself for what seemed to be the inevitable, even though I was also praying and believing that God could heal my father. I did definitely believe that. But I also knew that there was a possibility that God's will could be that he did not make it. But knowing that I did have God to lean on, and knowing that he knows all, and any choice that he makes is a good choice, even if it's not something that I would like to see happen, right? But that took a lot out of me, facing the reality of that. And once he passed away, having to be a mom and be there for your children, because I mean, remember, like, this is their grandfather that has passed away. So trying to be there for them and make sure I'm being there for myself as well. And, luckily I have friends and family who were there to check on me, and that makes a world of a difference. Your village, your community, they almost give you permission to fall apart for a minute because they're there for you and you don't feel like you're alone in this. But, being a mom, trying to be present and being their mom and grieving the loss of my parents, that's a lot. And I'm not going to say that I have the solution to how to handle that beyond relying on God and his comfort, and relying on the love from my friends and my family. That's about all the advice that I have for that right now. But I will say that making sure that I actually took the time to feel what was happening was important, and not letting it just acting like it didn't happen, because how can you just act like your father didn't pass away, right? So I'm kind of talking all over the place with this one, but it's still something that I'm trying to process. But that's a real thing. It's a real thing to feel like I can't slow down for a moment. I can't slow down and think about what I'm feeling right now because I will fall apart. But I had to give myself the opportunity to fall apart when I needed to fall apart. I gave myself a chance and continue to give myself a chance to cry when I need to cry. But then knowing that I can still do what I need to do as a mom. I don't have to completely unravel. I can unravel for a moment, allow myself the time and the opportunity to cry and to admit that I miss my father so much, That's a real thing. But I am also a mom and I have to be there for my parents. Why do I keep saying parents? This is real life podcasting, y'all. To be there for my children, right? Yeah. So if you're going through something similar, like if you're grieving the loss of a loved one, or you're grieving the or you're dealing with like a loved one being sick, or you're grieving the loss of some type of relationship or whatever it is, I understand how hard it can be to be present as a mom and paying attention to how you're feeling about that current situation. But I will tell you that it gets easier. You learn how to deal. You learn how to pay attention. If you're intentional, you can pay attention to your emotions and also pay attention to being a good mom at the same time. Hope that makes sense. Okay, and so the fourth point is some of us have superwoman syndrome that keeps us from feeling vulnerable enough to admit that we are sad or emotionally drained. Here's the thing, y'all. We are not supposed to feel like we have to take on the world and like we don't have emotions too, right? That superwoman syndrome, it's real. And I deal with it on a daily basis, feeling like I can do it all. I don't have time to admit that I'm sad right now. No, if you're sad, if you're emotionally drained, admit that and sit with that and figure out why you're feeling like that so that you can get through that situation. There is no rule in any book, anywhere, not that I've seen, that says that just because you're a mom, just because you have children to attend to, that you are too strong to have emotions of your own and to deal with that. No rule anywhere. The rule needs to be that there is room for me to attend to my children and be everything that they need and be everything that I need for myself, and use all of the resources that are available to me to make sure that I'm taking care of myself the way that I need to be taken care of as well. So I want to just remove the superwoman syndrome and just be diligent about being the best woman that I can be, but also admitting that I'm not perfect. I have emotions just like everyone else. I get sad, I get mad, I get angry, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I should take time to myself to give myself the attention that I need so that I can be the mom that I need to be to my children. Because if we're not taking care of our emotions, if we're not paying attention to what we're feeling, how can we show up as the good mom that we really need to be for our children? How can we show up for them and their emotional needs if we don't show up for ourselves and our emotional needs? Okay, so let's talk about how do we know when our emotions need our attention. Let's talk about it. So one thing for me is I notice when new unhealthy patterns are happening. Though that's a sign that my emotions need attention. I'm going to give you some examples. So if you stop caring for yourself, you stop exercising, you stop eating healthy, you just eat anything in sight, you're not paying attention to the movement of your body and making sure that you're taking care of your body in those ways, it's sometimes it's a clear sign. Sometimes it's a clear sign that there are some emotions that you're not paying attention to. You're not getting, also your space is getting junky. That can be a thing that is a clear sign that your emotions are not being attended to. Because sometimes your space is a reflection of where you are mentally and emotionally. So also when you're not getting rest, you're going to bed late, waking up in the middle of the night, consistently, that can be a sign that it's like your thoughts are racing. There are some emotions that you're not attending to that you need to pay close attention to, right? Um, so it's because it's important that we get our rest and that we take care of our bodies. But if you're noticing that these patterns are happening in your life to where you're not paying attention to yourself, there's a reason for that. And it could be because something's going on with you emotionally that you haven't attended to yet. So those are just a few ways to know when your emotions need attention. And it may show up differently for you, but if you just know that there's something that you normally do for yourself that you're not doing anymore, that helps you to take care of yourself and to make sure that you are giving yourself what you need, that can be an indication. Okay, what am I not paying attention to in my own life? What emotion am I currently experiencing that's keeping me from taking care of myself? Okay. So let's talk about how to become more self-aware of your emotions. Sitting in silence. What better way? What better way? Because silence is golden. Silence is a jewel. Oh my goodness. So when you're sitting in silence, you can hear yourself think without all the noise that comes along with being a mom. Like I said, mommy, 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 over and over again, right? Everybody needs something. Um, so I guess the question would be, okay, well, Sheilah, how am I going to get quiet time? I can barely find time for myself. And this is something that we have to be intentional about making sure that we have some quiet time for ourselves. I'm not saying it has to be an hour to 2 hours. 10 to 15 minutes is just as good. It gives you some type of reset, some type of space to think about what you're feeling. Okay, so here are some ways. When your child goes to bed, commit yourself to sitting in silence. You could just sit there and stare at the ceiling. I think I've said this before on the podcast. Stare at the ceiling. It's my favorite thing to do. Just lay there, stare at the ceiling, and think. It's the little things that matter the most, right? And also when you're sitting in silence, you can, and when your child goes to bed, you can meditate, right? You can use that time to meditate. You can go to the car and just sit or take a quick drive away from home. Those car rides by myself or just sitting in the car by myself, those things that you see, the things that you saw on Instagram, I'm sure, where it talks about sitting in the car is the real self-care. It really is. How many times have you pulled up in the driveway and you're like, I'm not ready to go in yet. I'm just going to sit here for about 10, 15 more minutes. Sometimes it turns into an hour for me, and my husband calls like, are you okay? So sitting in the car or just taking a drive because you don't want anyone to bother you, that is golden. Okay, that's when you can get some silence. Turn the radio off and just think about how you're feeling. Bathroom time. You can either act like you are doing something in the bathroom. I mean, it's not even acting. This time is my time. Don't cross this threshold. This time is my time. This is my quiet time. Close the door, right? You could do it, do your best. I know for me, I do my best thinking in the shower. Or just sit there on the toilet and just think. We have to be creative when we're moms. Be creative about the quiet time that you want for yourself and that you need. Okay. So, next, another way to become more self aware of your emotions, journaling. I talked about this many, many of times here on the podcast. It's the best way to keep up with your racing thoughts. I know my thoughts are going rampant. Like they don't stop until I go to sleep. Actually, it doesn't even stop when I go to sleep. um, so journaling has really been a godsend for me, and I just actually bought 2 new notebooks from the dollar store yesterday that I'm really excited about. Like I needed notebooks. I didn't, but I love journaling and I want to get back to it. So it's just a great way to keep up with what you're thinking because like I said earlier, it's so easy for me personally, Sheilah, when I'm thinking about something like, oh, what is that feeling? And then I forget about it and I can't even remember. You know how like when you forget something and you go back to that space where you thought about it and hope that you can remember it? That's me all the way. But if you keep a notebook near you, and I'm trying to make this a habit myself, and just write down the thought that came across, what was that feeling that I was feeling, and just making sure that I'm aware of that so that I can come back to it later. And here's the thing about journaling. You do not have to be a great writer to enjoy the benefits of journaling. You just don't. So if that's something that you were thinking you had to do, you don't. You do not have to be a good writer. Write down your words. Write down words that express your feelings with no formal order. Okay? Sometimes you could just write down an emotion that you're feeling. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling angry. Maybe you're feeling joyful, happy, whatever it is. Just write down all of the emotions so that you can get a sense of what's going on in that brain of yours, what's going on in your spirit, so that you can circle back and say, okay, well, why am I feeling like that? And then just sit with yourself and maybe ask yourself just some general questions like, what happened this week that made me feel angry? What happened this week that made me feel sad? And just write it down, and don't feel like you have to be perfect about it. There is nothing within the journaling rules that say that you have to be perfect. So don't worry about grammar and punctuation, because the sole purpose is for you to become aware of how you are feeling. That's it. It's not for anyone else's eyes unless you choose to share. Okay? So don't worry about the grammar and the punctuation and things like that. It's just for you. Okay, so next, how to become more self-aware of my emotions. Next one is talk about it. Don't hold on to your emotions. Don't keep it all inside, right? And talking about it could also be the journaling. Maybe you're not ready to talk to anyone about your feelings yet. Talk to someone you trust when you are feeling anxious, sad, mad, angry. It's really easy to talk about those feel good emotions. So easy. Oh, girl, let me tell you what happened at my job. Oh, my God, I got a promotion. Let me tell you what my husband did for me. Oh, he's just so sweet. But what about those things that happened when somebody made you upset or made you mad, or you feel guilty about something, whatever it is? Don't feel shame about that, because sometimes we feel shame when we feel sad, angry, guilty, or any other emotion that doesn't feel good. But here's the thing. We are all human. And the thing about being human is we can relate to each other in more ways than we realize. So because some of us are too busy trying to appear as though we have it all together, and remember, it's an appearance, and you don't need to appear to be something that you're not, right? Because we are trying to appear as though we have it all together, we can miss out on the opportunity to receive great advice, insight, or just a listening ear to help give us some emotional relief. Sometimes you just need to vent. Sometimes you don't need advice. Sometimes I just need to talk this out with you so that I can get it out of my head and stop feeling so bogged down by my emotions. And if there isn't anyone in your life that you feel close enough to that you can trust with your emotions, go to therapy. And even if you do have someone that you trust, go to therapy. Okay. I'm in the middle of looking for a new therapist myself. It is so helpful. It is so needed. It is something that we just should all do. Okay. And last but certainly not least, when it comes to becoming more self aware of your emotions, prayer. Prayer is number one for me. Now, sometimes I do put it on the back burner because sometimes it takes some energy. Sometimes it takes a lot of energy to pray. And I totally understand that. But once you do it, you'll think like, why didn't I do that before? Like, that's what I should have did first. So stay near to God. Because I'm going to tell you something. When I fall behind on prayer and reading my Bible, I just feel disconnected from myself, disconnected from God. And it just makes a huge difference in my mood. I just don't feel as peaceful. So when I stay close to God, He gives me the comfort that I need. And He just gives a sense of calm and relief to the chaos that I'm feeling on the inside. It just is what it is. He just does that for me. And He's ultimate, the ultimate solution to every single problem that you have. Don't get it twisted. All the books, all the friends, all the social media, therapy posts, they are great. But God is the ultimate solution to every problem you will ever have. So not only does He have all the answers, He is the answer. He is the answer. I want you to remember that, okay? So that's it for episode 29. I really missed you guys. I really appreciate you listening. I have a few things to ask of you before I leave. If you could, subscribe on whatever platform that you're listening to this on. Share with any other mom that you think can benefit from hearing any of the Keep Your Cool Mama episodes. Rate how you feel about the podcast on Apple Podcasts. I'm not sure if you can rate on other platforms. I know you can't on Spotify, but I definitely know that you can on Apple. So I will really appreciate that. Leave me a review. Let me know how you're feeling. You can email me if you have any questions, if you have any topic discussions that you want to recommend and you want to hear my take on. You can email me at keepyourcoolmama@gmail.com. I also have merch available. I have Keep Your Cool Mama merch available. And I have a Teespring store, and I'll leave the link in the notes. If I could talk today, I'll leave the link in the notes for you for the t-shirts. And I have a mug as well that's available. Keep Your Cool Mama. Let's see what else. Oh, and follow me on Instagram at Keep Your Cool Mama. I started to do some reels, y'all, and I started to have some more content up. I've done some lives. I've been doing strictly for Mama Mondays. So not only will the podcast come out on Monday, but I'm also trying to stay committed to doing Keep Your Cool Mama lives, which is strictly for Mama Mondays. So you can go ahead and go on over to Keep Your Cool Mama on Instagram and catch up on the ones that I have done already. I do try to make sure that I keep everything updated on Facebook as well, and you can follow me there at at Keep Your Cool Mama on Facebook. And just share, you guys. Share the love. I appreciate you guys, and I thank you for listening, and I will talk to you next time. Love you guys. Bye bye. Before I let you go. Ooh, oh, oh. Seriously, before I let you go, please subscribe and leave a review with 5 stars if this podcast is inspiring you and helping you to grow. Let's spread the positivity so that we are visible to other mamas out there trying to find her own greatness. And if you need some advice or guidance regarding your own personal growth while tackling motherhood, please email me at keepyourcoolmama@gmail.com. Love you guys.